COVID-19 vaccine, AstraZeneca Covishield COVID-19 vaccine, Janssen from Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccine single dose. Vaccines not currently accepted for fully vaccinated status in Canada include Bharat Biotech, Covaxin is an example, Sputnik, Sinovac, etc. Despite the relaxation of certain measures for vaccinated travelers, please remember that the direct flights from India to Canada remain suspended until July 21. For international students, those who are destined to designated learning institutions with the COVID-19 readiness plan approved by the respective provincial or territorial government may enter Canada. This, first and foremost, protects the health and safety of all students and surrounding community. Additionally, these plans describe how the DLIs will manage the mandatory 14-day quarantine period for international students, including arrangements for transportation to the student quarantine location. We often get the question if whether or not the students need to follow the quarantine plans the DLIs has set for them. And the answer to this is yes. If your DLI has specified a quarantine plan for you, you must follow it, as this may be a part of this COVID-19 readiness plan that has been approved for them. This is how they have gotten the respective province or territory to agree to allow them to permit you to come to Canada to study with them. These plans also provide information and support to international students about how they can get the items they need for their quarantine, like food and medication, health insurance, and how to remain healthy while in Canada. The list of approved DLIs is posted on IRCC's webpage and is updated every 2 weeks as province and territories approve additional schools. This travel restriction affects all the international students regardless of where they are traveling from or when their study permit was approved. Students should not make any travel plans until they have met all the requirements and received all necessary authorizations. This essentially means that you have received your passport with visa attached. Additionally, students should not travel more than 4 weeks in advance of the start of your classes. If you exceed this limit, you may be refused entry into Canada and return to your country of residence at your own expense. Please remember that the airline you use to travel to Canada and CBSA always have the final decision in whether you will be allowed to board or enter Canada. We can only provide you with the guidance based on the information that you provide to IRCC. One of the mistakes travelers make is assuming that they can accompany their family member who is traveling on either a work permit, study permit, or visitor visa to Canada. Most family members will require travel authorization from IRCC. Only those who meet the travel exemptions in their own right will be allowed to accompany their family member, such as minor child with a study permit who will also be attending school in Canada. A minor child or an infant without a study permit will require travel authorization from IRCC. If you are a parent and you want to accompany your child to school in Canada, you may do so provided they are entering into primary or high school. Those attending college or university are expected to settle on their own, unless they have a physical or mental disability preventing them from doing so. You will still need a visa in your own right, as well as travel authorization from IRCC. Authorization letters are only granted for temporary residents traveling with or to join their immediate family member in Canada and not for any other reason. Again, you should not make any travel plans until travel authorization is received. Depending on your circumstances, this could take several weeks before you receive a decision on your travel authorization request. This is in addition to processing times for a visa. Before traveling, ensure that you have all of the necessary documents to avoid issues in boarding your flight and at the port of entry. To board your flight, you will need to ensure that you have the following documents with you: your flight ticket, your valid passport, your valid visa, your POE letter, your LOA reflecting the start date of your classes, and your valid COVID-19 molecular test results. In addition to the items I've just listed, we strongly recommend you also have with you the following documents for CBSA to show them once you reach a port of entry. These are a reservation for your mandatory 3-day hotel stay if you are not considered to be fully vaccinated, your quarantine plan details. You will still need a quarantine plan in case you test positive on arrival. Proof of funds to cover your tuition, living expenses, and transportation costs. English language test results, and if your program has already started, evidence that you have been attending classes. COVID-19 has not only changed the way we travel, but also in the way we process applications. There have been some impacts on the processing as a result of the pandemic, such as only online applications are accepted at this time. This means you can apply for any type of visa, such as student, visitor, or worker, online. However, priority will be given to those applicants who meet the travel restriction exemptions. Mandatory online applications is actually a good consequence of the pandemic because this allows us to continually process applications across our network through work sharing of this caseload until operations normalize. When applying online, ensure that your name and date of birth are exactly as they are shown in your passport. We are seeing many cases where, for example, a name is incorrectly entered in the biometrics instruction letter, and this prevents the student from submitting their biometrics. These errors take time to correct and will delay processing. On the IRCC website, the published processing times are no longer accurate since we are prioritizing applications for people who are exempt from the travel restrictions. We are unable to provide specific processing timelines and cannot offer a response to any questions on the turnaround for processing of applications at this time. We will contact applicants only when there is an update regarding that application. So please be patient. We encourage applicants to monitor their online accounts, watch our website for updates, and follow us on social media to updated information. IRCC Delhi continues to operate at a limited capacity as necessitated by the pandemic. As such, please expect delays in responding to your queries. If you need to submit a document or new information, use your IRCC secure account to send us this information directly into your application. Additionally, please only send one inquiry and wait for a response. Sending the same inquiry multiple times will only cause further delays. Other factors also contribute to processing delays, such as missing documents and incomplete applications. Panel physicians across India are now booking appointments for upfront medicals. If you submitted an online application without an upfront medical, you will need to wait for an immigration medical examination form to book an appointment. This means that it may take longer for you to complete your medical exam or obtain the necessary documents you need for your application. However, you must submit the missing documents as soon as possible because we will not be able to finalize your application otherwise. If submitting an application with missing documents, I strongly recommend you provide an accompanying letter indicating what is missing and when you intend to submit them. For certain key items like language test results, transcripts, diplomas, or degree certificates, you should not submit your application until you have these documents. As you are likely aware, we have taken a phased approach to providing services at the VAC. After being closed for an extended period of time due to the pandemic, a lot has had to be changed because we take the health and welfare of our clients and staff very seriously. Therefore, we ask that you please be cautious and not overcrowd outside the VACs and come to your biometric appointment alone. The next slide will look into more details, some of the changes at the VACs. Because of the pandemic, the VACs are still operating at limited capacity. As of today, All visa applicants who hold a biometric instruction letter may book a biometrics appointment at a VAC in India using the online booking tool on the VFS Global website. When using the VAC online booking tool, a visa applicant holding a biometric instruction letter may book only one appointment. Attempts to book additional appointments are not permitted and delay processing requests for other applicants. Please scan the VAC QR code where many of your questions will be answered. Once scanned, the document will continue to be updated on your phone if and when IRCC updates their information. There is no need to scan the QR code again. Courier submission for holders of passport submission request letters will start in a phased manner. Please do not send your passport directly to the High Commission. Passports received at the High Commission will be immediately returned without a visa. Starting July 5th, passport submission is only available for clients who completed the two-way courier process prior to May 1st. We request your patience while you kindly wait for VFS to contact you. Passport submission for all other clients will begin later this month in a phased approach. Please monitor the VFS website and our social media pages for updates. I'm sure there are a number of you to whom this study permit process is very new. So let's go over some of the basics. For your submission to be considered an actual application, you need to submit upfront the following documents. The application forms. We don't have an application unless you have submitted all of the required forms. There is the application for a study permit and the family information form. If you are less than 17 years of age, you need to also submit a completed custodian declaration to indicate who will be caring for you when you are in Canada. And if you decide to use the help of anyone with your visa application, you should also declare this by submitting the use of a rep form. Fees. Lately, we have been seeing a number of applications missing fees, whether it is the processing fee or biometric fee. You need to submit both upfront. This means a fee receipt for a total of 235 Canadian dollars. Passport photos and a copy of your passport. A letter of acceptance from a DLI in Canada. Usually, this should be an unconditional LOA. However, we will accept a conditional LOA if you can also demonstrate, as in provide evidence, that you meet the conditions in your application. You should not submit your application until you have evidence to demonstrate that you meet the conditions as stated on your LOA. While this lists the basic documents for an application to be considered, you should aim to provide all necessary supporting documents as well, which we will discuss in the next slide. This slide reflects the documents you need for your eligibility assessment. It covers both the SDS and non-SDS stream. For Student Direct Stream, SDS, you need a valid LOA, IELTS test result, demonstrating 6.0 in each band, a receipt or documentation that the tuition has been paid for the first year, including all scholarships and grants, a receipt for a GIC for 10,000 Canadian dollars, your most recent school transcript, and a CAQ for Quebec-bound students. For the non-student direct stream, there is what's different. In addition to IELTS, we also accept Toefl and PTE test results. No online language test results will be accepted. Instead of a GIC and paying a full year tuition, you must show liquid funds to pay for tuition, living expenses and transportation for the first year of school, plus an explanation and evidence of how you intend to pay for all the remaining subsequent years of school without relying on working in Canada. Additionally, we strongly recommend that you submit a statement of purpose to explain why you have chosen that program of study, why Canada, and explain your financial plan to pay for all your years of study. Note that if you are unable to submit a required document, For example, upfront medicals, your application will be moved to non-SDS stream. We strongly recommend that you only submit your application once you have all the documents required for your eligibility assessment. Failure to provide a required document may result in the refusal of your application. Note that this is not a refusal based on non-compliance, but rather that you provided unsatisfactory evidence to either demonstrate your bona fides as a student or lack of funds for your purpose of travel. In these next two slides, we want to provide you with the information about the medical examinations and tuberculosis. We sometimes find that applicants are reluctant to complete their medicals because of fear of refusal. Allow us to allay some of these fears now. All permanent resident applicants and temporary resident applicants who will be staying in Canada for more than 6 months require medical exam. Only designated panel physicians are able to conduct your immigration medical exam. You can find a list of them on our website. Note that the panel physician doesn't make the final decision about your medical exam. IRCC does. If there is a problem with your medical exam, we will contact you in writing. When can you take your medical exam? You have two options. You can do it before you submit your application. This is called an upfront medical. To arrange this, please contact the panel physician directly to make an appointment. This is what we recommend everyone to do. Your other option is to wait until after you have submitted your application. If you choose this route, you must wait for IRCC to send you instructions. You will have 30 days to comply with these instructions. Failure to do so may result in the refusal of your application. Here is what you can expect during the exam. You must complete a medical history questionnaire which will ask you about previous or existing medical conditions. They also ask you about any medications you are taking. There is the physical examination during which the doctor or the medical clinic staff will weigh you, measure your height, check your hearing and vision, take your blood pressure, feel your pulse, listen to your heart and lungs, feel your abdomen, check how your limbs move, and look at your skin. You have the right to chaperone at any time during the medical exam. You may ask the medical clinic to have a staff member in the room, stop the exam at any time to ask questions about what the doctor is doing, stop the exam and ask for a chaperone, even if you refused one at first, and if you have questions or feel uncomfortable with the part of the exam, please ask the panel physician to stop and tell them about your concerns. You should also note the following. Chest X-ray is mandatory for all applicants 11 years of age or older. Urine test and blood test is mandatory for all applicants aged 15 and older. The blood test is to check for HIV, syphilis, kidney, and liver functions. When you arrive, the panel physician or clinic staff will ask you for identification to confirm your identity. If you are referred for an X-ray or other test, you may be asked to present your identification again when you go for those tests. Your picture will also be taken for our records. After your exam is done, the panel physician will send the results electronically to IRCC. This usually takes between 2 to 3 days before it gets recorded in your immigration file, but it could go up to 10 days. So please be patient. In case of additional tests required, we will let you know promptly if you need them. During the medical examination, you will be tested for tuberculosis, also known as TB. If the doctor finds signs of tuberculosis, you may be asked for additional tests to determine if your TB is old and inactive or if it is active. In most of the cases, TB is old and inactive and your medical can be finalized immediately. In a small percentage of patients, TB can be active. In those cases, it is important to note that anyone can get TB as it is transmitted through the air when a person with TB coughs, speaks, laughs, or sneezes. Since TB is contagious, it is important that you get treated before you travel. If you have TB, you will not be barred from going to Canada. You will, however, need to be fully treated before you travel. TB can be treated, but it is very important to complete the full treatment. If you do not complete the full treatment, you can develop a form of TB that is more difficult to treat and you can infect people around you and those you love. Since we are on the subject of medicals, it is extremely important for you to note that your medicals must be valid at the time of travel. For your knowledge, all medicals are only valid for 1 year from the date of your initial exam. This means that if more than 1 year has elapsed since you did your medical exam, you must complete a new medical exam if you have not yet traveled to Canada and even though you already have a visa. Note that even though you have a valid visa, it will be deactivated if your meds have expired. This only applies to students who have not yet used their visa to travel to Canada. If you already used your visa and have returned to India for a short vacation in between semesters, you do not need to do a new medical to travel back. Let's go over the process of what you need to do. Check your original medical form and look at the date of when you completed your medical exam. If more than 1 year has elapsed or will elapse by the time you are ready to travel, you need a new medical. To start, you need to contact your local panel physician and book an appointment for an upfront medical exam. You will receive a document titled eMedical and has the following information: a UMI barcode, your photo, your personal details, and the date of your visit. You do not need to send this document to IRCC, as the panel physician who conducted your medical exam will send us the results electronically. Please bring it with you when you are traveling, as CBSA may request to see this document at the port of entry when entering Canada. Many of you will have questions about working in Canada and how the current changes may affect your opportunity to be employed. So why is the post-graduation work permit important for many students? Work experience provides a better opportunity to gain the language, skills, and work experience required to apply for permanent resident status in Canada. In addition, Canada has some of the highest salaries for workers. Furthermore, persons with Canadian work experience are often able to demonstrate they have the skills, knowledge, and critical thinking required to do the job. It is worth noting that you can obtain up to a 3-year Pgwp. This all depends on the length of your eligible studies. IRCC has introduced additional measures to provide maximum flexibility for students to obtain their Pgwp. First of all, you need to ensure that you meet the usual Pgwp requirements. Check our website to ensure that the program in which you are enrolled makes you eligible for a Pgwp. You can study your program online and outside of Canada, and the time spent on studies will count towards your Pgwp if you have been enrolled in a program that was in progress in March 2020, or you started a program between spring 2020 and winter 2021, and you have been approved for a study permit, or you applied for a study permit before starting your program in 2020 or 2021. Note that all studies in fall 2020 onwards must be full-time in order to count towards a Pgwp. Here is some great news. You can now complete up to 100% of your program online up until December 31, 2021. You can even complete up to 2 programs provided that your program is between 8 and 12 months in length and you started your program of study between May and September 2020. Now, in the event that your first application may have been refused, note that you can apply again. And if your subsequent application gets approved, all of the time on studies will still count towards your Pgwp. The key is to apply before you begin your studies. This section applies to students already in Canada. Essentially, if a student switched to part-time studies or had to take a break in studies, for example, the spring semester may have been cancelled, due to the pandemic, they may still continue to work on and off campus, provided that they were previously a full-time student and already authorized to work on or off campus pre-pandemic. For off-campus work, the maximum limit is still 20 hours per week during the academic session and full-time during the regular academic breaks. School closure, part-time studies, or semester cancellation due to COVID-19 do not count as regularly scheduled academic break. We want to inform you of various fraud activities and misinformation related to immigration applications. We strongly advise you to download the IRCC app. This app allows you to easily verify or find an authorized immigration consultant. If you are working with an agent in India, it is important to note that the agents are not authorized consultants and should not provide you with the immigration advice or submit an application on your behalf. They can only do administrative functions. Many of the agents used by DLIs are for the recruitment process and not immigration matters. Also, it is important to stay alert to fraud. Here are some ways you can do this. Protect yourself. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Never share your personal information with unauthorized strangers. Fraudulent websites and scams. Websites may claim to be official Government of Canada site. They do this trick to trick people into paying them money. Note that the application processing fees are fixed and have no additional charges. Email scams. IRCC will never send you an email from a private address. Emails may also appear to be coming from our office but are actually coming from a scammer. Learn how to expand the headings of the email address you received to find out who is the actual sender. Telephone scams. IRCC will never ask you for any sort of payment by telephone. All fees must be paid online through our website. If you need to contact us regarding your application, please only use the IRCC web form. If you want to attach additional information to your application, send us a request via the web form, and we will create a line in your online account to which you can upload the document yourself. This will require 5 business days before you can do this, so please be patient. There is no need to send us your inquiry or documents in multiple ways because this will just slow down overall processing. If you want to verify if a visa is valid or to report fraud, please contact the fraud email address on your screen. If you are reporting fraud in India, you must also report it to local police. The other email addresses listed were covered in the presentation. Please only send a message to the IRCC COVID travel exemption mailbox if you meet the travel exemptions and require a travel authorization letter. For more information, here are the many ways to connect with us and to find information. We have the IRCC website, the High Commission website, and social media such as Facebook and Twitter. We use QR codes to provide you with the information because there is a lot to cover in short presentation. If you need assistance in submitting an online application, again, please scan the QR code. This provides you with a step-by-step guide on how to apply online. This is the end of our presentation. Thank you again for your participation and your attention. We will now be addressing your questions.
Thank you so much, Shivani. We will now be taking up the questions. My name is Anantapa and I'm the Outreach Officer for IRCC Delhi. And to answer your questions, we have Ms. Elena Balboa, who is the Student Unit Manager. So, without any further ado, I will direct the first question to Elena, which is, if the students who had received a document request after May 15 or submitted the additional documents after the May 15 deadline, would they still fall under the IRCC processing deadline of 6th August as of now?
Thank you for that question. The answer is no. If we had to request documents from you, it means that your application was missing certain information. Thank you.
So the next question is, could you explain if IRCC has informed me that I have cleared the eligibility, does that mean that my visa has been approved?
So there's two parts to the assessment of a visa application. There's the eligibility assessment and the admissibility assessment. So eligibility is completely separate. Admissibility concerns your biometrics, potential misrepresentation, your medical exam, etc. So that still needs to be done in addition to the eligibility assessment itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Alina. The next question is there a deadline to file study permit applications for the fall intake of 2021?
So if you have not yet filed an application for September, for a program that starts in September, you're too late. You really are. You may want to consider deferring your program to winter 2022, because giving us less than 2 months to process your application, given the current pandemic circumstances, it will be impossible. Thank you.
Thank you, Alina. So the next question, and this has come to us in a variety of different formats, but the main question that people are asking is, if you could comment on the current processing timelines for visa applications, the current situation.
So as mentioned in the presentation, we can't provide any specific processing timeframes because of various reasons for delays in processing right now. We are trying to get through the inventory as quickly as we can, and that means really focusing on decision making. So what I would really recommend is for everybody to monitor their online account for any correspondences, their emails as well, your personal emails. Monitor your emails for any correspondences we may send your way in case we need additional information. This is also how we'll be sending you your passport request letter in case you are approved for a visa. We haven't started this yet or resumed this service yet, but we will likely soon. So continue to monitor your accounts. Also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, to get any updates on anything new that might be happening with the program. That'll be useful for you in planning out your future. Thank you.
Thank you, Alina. And just to follow up with that question on processing timelines, people are asking if there is actually any difference between the timelines for SDS applications and non-SDS applications currently.
I believe there are. So usually for SDS, the processing is a little bit faster because the documents required for SDS make it faster for us to process. Whereas the non-SDS, it's a bit of a more complex assessment and takes a lot longer to do. So certainly if you can apply via SDS, this is in your best interest. This is what I would recommend. Thank you.
Thank you, Alina. The next question is, does raising a web form to upload additional document create any delays in the processing of a particular file?
That is a great question, and yes, it does. So normally when you apply, you should provide all of the documents we need for us to process your application. This is why we ask for complete applications up front. Because when you send us web forms, when you send us questions, when you send us additional documents, this takes away an employee from making decisions on cases to deal with these emails, these web forms coming in, right? So certainly, like all of this combined, like if you think about the thousands of emails that we might receive daily, think of the resource it requires for us to get through all of that, and that's taking away from decision-making time. So the less you can do this, the more we can focus on getting a decision for you. If there are additional documents that you need to submit because you failed to submit them in the first place, then you don't really have a choice, right? Like you'll need to send them to us. And I believe that our client services unit, who's working through all of the emails, are basically advising clients that we're creating a line for you in the system for you to upload your document to, so that we don't have to do it. So this also saves us time and resource. So that's what I would recommend. Thank you.
The next question is, does getting a biometric validation correspondence letter after giving the biometrics imply that they have been processed and approved?
Yeah, so generally when you get the biometrics validity letter, it means that your application has been finalized. Please don't ask us for a passport request letter yet. When passport transmission resumes at the VACs, then we will send these letters out. But for now, please be patient and wait for your letter to come later. Thank you.
Thank you, Elena. The next question is also on biometrics and a unique one. So the person asks that if they will be asked for biometrics again if they have already received the validity letter citing poor quality of biometrics received. Is a case like that a possibility?
Yeah, so normally you shouldn't receive your biometrics validity letter if there's still an issue with your biometrics. But in case you did receive it and then you received later a request for you to redo your biometrics because of the poor quality of your biometrics, I suggest you comply as soon as you can because that means your file is still in progress. Thank you.
Thank you, Elena. The next question is about hotel quarantine. So the person asks if the 3-day hotel quarantine is while waiting for a COVID test result at the port of entry in Canada is mandatory for a fully vaccinated student.
So in terms of fully vaccinated, you have to be fully vaccinated according to Canadian regulations. So this only pertains to those who were vaccinated with the vaccines approved by Canada. And you do not need to do the 3-day mandatory hotel quarantine. However, at the port of entry, when you receive your on-arrival PCR test, they will ask you to isolate yourselves, just self-isolation, not quarantine. So this means if, for example, you've booked a hotel room yourself or an Airbnb or whatever it may be, you're able to go in and out and do essential things like grocery shopping, etc. You're not confined to your room. That's what self-isolation means. It also means that you need to just make sure that you're not coming into close contact with anybody else. Likely the CBSA at the POE at the port of entry will also ask you to keep a list of any persons you may come into close contact with until your test results arrive. Just in case those results are positive, they can at least advise those persons you've come into close contact with to also self-isolate and get tested in case you may have transmitted COVID to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Elena. The next question is regarding the SDS category, and it asks about documentation. So in the SDS category, is showing a GIC and the first year tuition enough proof of funds, or is it necessary for the person to also show tax returns, salary slips, and in that case, will the file be considered stronger than other SDS files submitted in the same lot?
So to me, a really good file would be to provide the SDS documents. So GIC, first year tuition paid, plus show me evidence of where you got the money to pay for all of this. So, if you're providing your parents' tax returns, this shows me that they're earning an income that they have saved to provide for your first year tuition. If there are bank statements that showing that your parents have been saving money from working, from investments, or whatever it may be, it shows me this is where the money will come from to pay for any subsequent years of schooling. Like, these are all important things that factor into us assessing the eligibility of your application. So to me, it's important for me to know the provenance of the funds you're showing me, and to show me that you can actually pay for all of your years of schooling, not just the first year. So you don't need to show me liquid funds for everything, but at least I can see if there's continually incoming income that will pay for your subsequent years of school. This makes a very strong application. Thank you.
Thank you, Alina. I'm sure that'll help because a lot of people have asked similar questions with regard to financial documentation proof. The next question is a little specific, but it might also be helpful for a few other people who are in our participants today. So the person is an Indian, but they're currently in Sweden since the past 2 years. So they're asking if they would need medicals for their student visa application, as Sweden is in the list of designated countries.
You mean it's not on the list of designated countries?
Yes, sorry, it's not on the list of designated countries.
Right. So no, they won't need medicals. Thank you.
Thank you, Anita. So the next question is, if a study permit application is refused, but later the reconsideration request is accepted, and the student has received a letter that their request was reviewed and application is open again, does that mean that the decision might change in the future?
That's correct. So certainly once an application is open, it could go either way, right? So someone is reviewing all of the documents. They've essentially determined that the initial refusal, there was an error in that refusal. Either someone may be mislooking at a document, maybe the refusal notes weren't well documented, all sorts of things could have happened. There might have been an administrative error of sorts. And so they're re-reviewing your case, and it could potentially lead to an approval. It could also potentially lead to another refusal. It could go either way. Thank you.
Thank you, Alina. So the next question is specific, but then it also covers a topic which we repeatedly talk about, representatives and consultants. So the person says that they received their passport request on 17th April and their consultant raised their web form on 19th April. But it seems like they have not received any reference number or any confirmation mail. So they are doubtful if the web form was raised on a wrong email ID or not raised at all. And what should they do in a situation like this?
So this is for passport transmission, is it?
Yes, they've mentioned passport request letter. So yeah, passport transmission.
Okay, so you've received your passport request letter. I'm assuming this all refers to passport transmissions and trying to arrange for the courier service that the VACs are currently providing to get us your passport here. So I'll say that back in April, so this is just before we went on lockdown here again in India, the VACs weren't able to get through to everyone, especially if you've just submitted your web form just before things started to shut down again. And that's likely why you haven't received any information, because as of right now, there is no specific date of when passport transmission will resume. So what I would recommend is that please monitor our Facebook page, our Twitter feed, and the VFS website to be updated on when passport transmission services will resume. There will be instructions on how to access this service. I would recommend that you re-register or resubmit your request to obtain this service so that you can give us your passport for visa issuance. Thank you.
Thank you, Alina. The next question, the person asks that would a student visa refusal from any other country, and in this case it is specifically the USA, would it affect the study permit decision to Canada?
It depends on why you were refused, to be perfectly frank. So, I mean, if this is just a matter of, eligibility issues, you didn't provide the required documents, etc., then no, this doesn't have a lot of impact. But if you committed a crime, if you committed misrepresentation, if you were an overstay or illegally migrated, like these are things that could potentially impact your application. Thank you.
Thank you, Alina. So the topic for the next question is something which we have already covered in the presentation, but maybe a few of our participants might still have doubts about it. So the person is asking, if they travel from Mumbai through another transit city, but arrive within 72 hours, would they still need to do another test at the transit city given the current travel restrictions and flight bans in place?
Yes, so there are very specific instructions for India because the flight ban right now affects only India. And the flight ban restrictions basically indicate that you need to take a PCR test at the last country you were in. So in your transit city, so if you're going, for example, from Mumbai to somewhere in the Middle East, like Doha, you need to take a PCR test in Doha, get your results before you'll be allowed on a plane to go from Doha to Canada. Does that make sense?
I think it does. So yeah, thank you, Elena. The next question is, a very unique case actually, and it might be happening to quite a few students who are right now in India. So how can a student visa be extended for international students who have been studying online from India, but the visa has expired and they were still stuck in India and could not travel to India travel from India due to various reasons? And of course, these students have never yet landed in Canada. So how can their extensions be done?
So we won't extend your visas if we've already issued it. You need to submit a new application. And if you've been studying online while in India, you need to ensure that you're providing proof of these studies in your new application. Thank you.
Thank you, Elena. So could you actually elaborate what a port of entry or POE letter is, and when do students receive it, and how does it look like, and what is the main purpose of it? Because it seems to be a question which is coming up.
So a port of entry introduction letter basically provides some information about yourself and your purpose for traveling to Canada. This is issued once we've actually printed and issued you your visa. So this is not going to come in advance. So number one, for that to happen, we need to have requested your passport. We need to have put that visa in your passport and then ship that passport back to you. So once we've completed the passport printing and stamping, that's when you'll actually get the port of entry letter to be sent to you. So this is going to be sent through your online account, and this is where you need to monitor for it to come through. It's usually, I'll say, like a 3-page document, PDF'd, and like I said, it basically has details of why you're going to be traveling to Canada and includes your personal information, including your study details. Thank you.
Thank you, Elena. The next question is with regards to IELTS. So if someone's course has already started online, but they have not yet traveled to Canada, and their IELTS score is expiring in August, so would they need to take the test again, or just the fact that they have a valid study permit be okay?
So the IELTS only needs to be valid at the time you're submitting your application. If you're traveling to Canada, it does not need to be valid. What does need to be valid is your visa and your medicals. So it's just those two things. IELTS doesn't factor in your being allowed entry into Canada. Thank you.
Thank you, Elena. So the next question is about file status. So they want to know how they can find out where their file is at right now and what would be the current status of the file. So is there a particular process that they need to follow, or are there multiple options where they can go and have a look at the status of their file?
So number one, you should only be checking your online IRCC secure account for the status of your file, or this, and you should be able to find the information in there. If I'll say, like, if your application is probably more than 6 months old and you haven't received anything from us in a long time, and I mean, like, by a long time, like, say you haven't received any correspondence from us in like the last 2 months, you can send us a web form to ask for information because your case is quite old. However, even if your case was, like, for example, submitted in 2020, But we just sent you a letter either last month or the month before. Please don't write to us, because we're either still expecting a response from you, or your case is in queue for us to review that response. So please don't write to us. Try to avoid writing to us if possible. We're only asking this at this time because our operational capacity is really limited, and we're really trying to focus on decision making here so that everybody can get decisions in time for the fall 2021 semester. The more people write to us, and for us to have to answer all of these emails, or whether it's questions on Facebook or on Twitter, it's taking away resources from decision making. Just keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Alina. The next question is about medical examination, and this is something which we receive a lot on social media as well. So the person says that they have submitted their application without the IME, and then they did not wait for their IME, but still got their test done anyway. Would this cause any delay or any problem with the processing of their application?
Yeah, so for anybody who submitted an application without medicals attached, you really should wait for the IME. Why? So the IME links the medical results directly to your application, so we don't have to deal with it, right? It gets automatically linked. You will be able to see this in your IRCC secure account. If you do an upfront medical after you've submitted your application, so your medical is basically floating in limbo until one of our staff is able to find it, retrieve it, and then attach it to your case. So number one, this causes additional work, which means, compounded delays. If you think about the number of students who are applying and the number of students who may not have submitted upfront meds with their initial application and then are now trying to do upfront meds mid-application. So please wait for the IME to come to you before you do your medicals, so that the system will do the work for us, right? So that the system will do the automatic matching to your application. We don't have to look for it. The more that you're occupying our resources, the more delays there will be all across the board for everybody, not just yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Alina. The next question is about biometrics appointments and the closures for VAC. So if someone has submitted their application before the May 15th deadline but could not submit their biometrics due to VAC closures, would they still be eligible or can expect a decision by the August 6th deadline? Because, of course, what they're saying is that it wasn't their mistake that the VAC got closed. So what would you like to say about this?
So I understand the question. The thing is, this policy, this temporary policy for us to expeditiously process complete cases that were received before May 15 by August 6th, this is a global policy. It's not an India policy. It's not just for India. So there are many countries around the world where the COVID situation wasn't as dire as here in India. And their VAC services were either only, not significantly impacted or no impacts at all. And so those students could participate and benefit from this policy. Mind you, there are Indian students as well who are able to benefit from this policy because they've previously submitted a TRV application where they had to do biometrics. And as you know, biometrics are valid for 10 years. So if you submitted biometrics before, you don't have to do them again. So these students were able to benefit from this policy as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Alina. So the next question is about vaccines. So if someone has received the approved vaccines as per the Government of Canada and they have still not submitted their study permit application, would it be advisable for them to add the vaccine certification as part of their study permit application?
That's unnecessary. IRCC does not care whether you're vaccinated or not. This document is really for CBSA at the port of entry. This is where it's important for you to demonstrate that you've been vaccinated. Thank you.
Thank you, Alina. The next question is, if someone's spouse has an open work permit, can they travel with the student or would they need a valid job offer to travel, given the current travel restrictions?
So spouses of students can travel with their student spouse, provided that they are going to Canada for the purpose of helping the spouse resettle and to resettle themselves there in Canada. So if you're only going, for example, to Canada to get your spouse sorted and then you're going to leave right away, this type of travel is not permitted. But if you're also moving to Canada with your spouse for the entire duration of their studies because you intend to live together, that's perfectly fine. You won't need additional travel authorizations. You can just travel with them with the visa that's issued to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Elena. If biometrics has already been submitted in the past 2 years for a visitor visa, does the person need to submit biometrics again?
So as previously mentioned, biometrics are valid for 10 years. So if you submitted it 2 years ago, you still have 8 years left on the validity of these biometrics. So you don't need to submit it again. Thank you.
Thank you, Elena. The next question is something which is very relevant given the current situation in India. So as you know, the 12th CBSE results have not yet been declared, and the applicant has submitted the previous class 10th examination board exam mark sheet and even the 11th and 12th midterm mark as per the predicted scores. So will that be considered for the application?
So yes, certainly we can take it into account, but what's important to note is that if your letter of acceptance has certain conditions about you providing a final transcript or evidence of graduation, so this is what you need to meet, this is what you need to demonstrate. The marks itself just shows us whether or not you're a serious academic student, but think about also whether or not there might be conditions on your LOA that you have to meet that's related to these final transcripts. Thank you.
Thank you, Elena. The next question, or there are a series of questions, and I'll just combine them here, are about English language tests. So are tests like Toefl, IBT, Home Base, or Duolingo accepted as proof of English language for a study permit application?
So I believe we mentioned this in the presentation. So online English language tests like Duolingo, the Toefl Home Edition, etc., these are not accepted by IRCC for the purpose of obtaining a visa. You need to take either Ielts, Toefl, or PTE at a test center, at an authorized test center, for those tests to be considered for your application. Thank you.
The next question is regarding medicals. So if the medicals are to expire in a couple of months and the person is traveling, say, in the next month or so, but their medical will expire sometime in October or November. So will that hamper their entry into Canada in any way, or their study permit in general?
So they're basically wanting to travel while their medical is still valid, even though it's expiring soon. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so no, as long as your medical is valid on the day you enter Canada, you're perfectly fine to travel to Canada. It's when they're not valid, when you're intending to travel, and that usually means your visa has actually been deactivated, you won't even be allowed to board the plane. Thank you.
Thank you, Elena. So the next question is, if someone changes their program, not the DLI, but just a program after submitting a visa application, but before receiving a passport request, will that affect their visa processing, and would they need to upload the new letter of acceptance anywhere?
Yes, you should inform us of the change in your program. And, you know, the type of program that you want to do. So number one, we're not judging the school you intend to go to. We're judging what program you want to study and whether or not that makes sense for you based on your history. So if you're changing the program of study, so for example, you were initially en route to enroll in a computer science program, and now you want to change to history, which is like two completely very different things. we need to assess whether or not that's actually a logical progression of studies based on your current history. So yes, certainly it will factor. Thank you.
Thank you, Elena. The next question is also about English language tests, but the person is asking that are there any case-specific exemptions with regard to IELTS or Toefl, because they seem to have not submitted their English language test results because apparently they were informed by their immigration consultant that the test is not recommended in their case as they have finished their 12th from an international board, like an international baccalaureate or something of that sort.
So I'll say that it's in your best interest to provide the documents we recommend in this presentation, which includes IELTS or some sort of English language test. An office, not providing that may cause either delays in your application or potential refusals. Like, we've come up with that list because really it helps us as visa officers, as decision makers, to make decisions quickly and accurately on your case. And the more complete your application is, it's in your best interest. Thank you.
So, as you know, probably, Lina, that in India currently, people or kids below the age of 18 have still not received vaccinations. So if they have to travel, but their accompanying parents are going with them, in that case, would the parents be then exempt from quarantine and the children would not be? Is that the scenario?
That's correct.
Okay. So I'm just sorting through the questions and I'm trying to see. Okay, so the next question asks, is it advisable to book flights before we have any visa confirmation?
Absolutely not. Please do not book travel, make travel arrangements or anything until you have a visa in hand. Because a lot of things can happen between now and then. And a lot of the time we cannot help you when you're sending us these messages indicating you have a flight tomorrow or the day after, and you need your visa desperately. Right now, for example, there's no passport transmission. So we can't help you. So please don't book any tickets or make any hotel bookings or reservations until after you've received your visa, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Nina. The next question is about medicals, and the person is asking if once they have submitted or they've done their medical exam, how long does it take? And once the panel physician has sent their results to IRCC, ideally, how long would it take for the status to get updated in one's IRCC portal?
So let's talk about this two ways. So number one, let's talk about medicals where your application is still open. When your panel physician conducts your exam, they will then send the results electronically to IRCC. And for cases where you've provided an upfront medical at the same time as your application submission, we will not attach these medicals to your file until an officer is actually looking at the case. So don't expect your medicals to show up in your IRCC secure account right away if you've provided upfront medicals with your application. Now, if you're submitting an application but without medicals and you did the medicals afterwards, if you did the medicals afterwards, after you receive your IME, this is automatically attached to your application. You will see this in your IRCC secure account. If you submitted your application without medicals, and you did an upfront medical afterwards anyways, so again, you will not see this attached to your application until an officer has begun reviewing your case. And so please don't expect to see that right away. This is why we tell everybody, please wait for the IME if you've already submitted your application. Now, if you've already received your visa, meaning your application is closed, you will not see any new medicals attached to your case because this is all being done in the background because technically your case is closed and your visa has been issued. So it's going to be attached in the background. You need to give us at minimum 2 weeks, at minimum. So this isn't exact. Don't start planning your travel 2 weeks after you've done your medicals. Why? your medicals still need to be assessed by an immigration officer on our medical team. And based on those results, it's not an automatic approval, right? There could be some anomalies in your medical results that may require further testing or a drug regimen to clear out an issue, etc. So just because you've done a medical doesn't mean it's an automatic visa is going to get reactivated. It's an approval. You need to give us time to assess. And then once that assessment is done, then we'll reactivate your visa. For most tests, I mean, let's face it, most tests, yes, certainly, they result in an approval, and those can maybe take up to a week, and then another week or two for your visa to be reactivated. For those where further testing is required, this could be delayed by several months. So keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Alina. That was a very comprehensive answer, and I'm sure that helps a lot of people because we do get this query a lot also on our social media. So the next question is about, so the person is asking that along with their study permit application, if their family has also applied for their visa, say for example, open work permits and study permits for their children, would that in totality affect or delay the primary applicant study permit application in any way?
Yes, I'll say yes for sure, because the more applications that are attached to your own, certainly it'll take more time. And also when you have attached accompanying family members to you, this makes your case a little bit more complex to deal with. And yes, certainly it'll take more time than just a solo standalone study permit. That's not to say or discourage people from submitting applications as a family group. You will just have to be a little bit more patient. And, this is mainly coming from all of the processing delays that we're experiencing during this pandemic as well. Under normal, usual circumstances, this isn't so problematic, but it is a bit of an issue right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Alina. The next question is about non-SDS applications. So if someone is submitting a non-SDS application, but they still want to go ahead and pay the first year's tuition and also have a GIC, so is that acceptable as part of the application and advisable?
Yes, absolutely. That actually, that makes for a stronger application in my view, where money is actually locked into certain things like a GIC and full year tuition paid. You also need to provide evidence of how you're going to pay for the subsequent years of school, and you need to show the provenance of those funds you've used to pay for that GIC and the first year tuition. Thank you.
Thank you, Alina. The next question is kind of a unique question. So what about those applicants who are not based in India but are Indian citizens or Indian passport holders and have done their education from countries outside of India, mostly Europe and the Americas? Would they still be required to submit English language test proofs as part of their application?
So we'll say that if you took a program or completed a degree or whatnot in a country where English is the primary language spoken, then no, you will not need to provide English language test results. So this would be countries like the US, the UK, Australia, and New Zealand. Thank you.
Thank you, Alina. The next question is about refusals. And so when we say that we would want, an officer would want to see a candidate's proof or validation that they will be returning to India after the duration of their program, what is specifically that the visa officer wants to see, and what are the things that an applicant might share in a situation like this to satisfy the visa officer?
So I'm not going to give you any examples because you need to come up with your own. But basically, you need to tell me why you're coming back to India. So what are the things that are going to make you want to come back here? What are you going to do with your degree? What are the things that you've left here in India that you want to come back to? This is what you need to tell me. Thank you.
Thank you. We're nearly at the end of our questions, but I think they're still coming in. So we will take a few of them. So the person says that their visa file is still in process, but they have changed their DNI. So what do they need to do in a situation like this?
So if your file is still in process and you're switching DLIs, you need to inform us immediately. Please send a web form to inform us of this change and provide your new updated LOA. Thank you.
Thank you, Elena. The next question is about police clearance certificates, and this is something that we also get quite often. So whether it is an SDS application or a non-SDS application, does a study permit application from India require a police clearance certificate?
So usually we won't require a police certificate for most cases. We will request this once an officer has reviewed the case. And this won't be every case, this will actually be very few cases, if anything. Thank you.
Thank you. With regard to applications and previous travel history, mostly to the Americas, Canada or USA, would that be an advantage when one is applying for study permit application if they have traveled to any of these countries before as a visitor?
Yes, certainly it'll count as a positive factor for you if you've had previous travel and you're able to demonstrate that you complied with the terms and conditions of that previous visa and that previous travel. Thank you.
So the next question is that if I am traveling through another country and I have plans to stop in that country because I have family there and I receive a passport request letter during that time, can I go ahead and get my passport stamped in that particular country? In this case, the person is talking about Germany, but I guess it will apply, the response will apply to other countries as well.
Yes, certainly. You can send your passport to any VAC around the globe if you have a valid passport request letter. You don't have to submit it to a VAC in India. Mind you, like, you have to be in that country where the VAC is present. Don't think about mailing your passport to those places. You'll need to submit it in person. Thank you.
The next question is about SOPs. So could you just give a brief overview or just a format, not a format, but just an idea of what is essentially required to be covered in an SOP or a statement of purpose?
So, number one, why are you choosing this program of study? Number two, if you've had a previous employment history or education gap, explain to me what you were doing during that time and why you're returning to studies now. And number three, why are you picking India? Why are you picking Canada? Number four, what's going to bring you back to India after you complete your studies? What are you going to do with this program or this degree or diploma that you've earned in your future career? Yeah, I'll say like that covers pretty much it. Thank you.
Okay, I think we have pretty much answered all of the questions that we have received. I agree that quite a few of you might have had similar questions which we have already addressed. So that is why your questions were not picked up, because we tried to pick up unique questions which could actually cater to all the participants' different needs for information. And with that, Elena, I would now hand it over to you to do the closing remarks for the webinar.
Thanks, Anandita, and thanks, Shivani. So first of all, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. We've appreciated the time that you've dedicated to this session. We hope that you found it useful. I really encourage every one of you to follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, and to monitor the canada.ca website for updates, especially on travel restrictions and any other program updates. This will help you plan for your future better and to know what to expect from us as well. Please also ensure that you're very aware of all of the travel restrictions and all of the requirements necessary to enter Canada at this time. As you may know, that the current flight ban is scheduled to expire on July 21st. So it can either be extended or it could be eliminated altogether. Please watch our various spaces for more updates on that. At this time, we have nothing new to provide. And in terms of passport transmission, because I'm also seeing a lot of questions about this, we do not have a date yet of when passport transmission will resume, although I expect it will resume soon. So again, monitor our various social media pages, as well as the VFS website for any updates on that front. In the meantime, I hope that you are all safe. Please take care, and hopefully you'll receive the decisions on your application soon. And for those who do receive visas, safe travels, and hope to see you in Canada one day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sharina, and thank you to our outreach team, to Shivani and Pooja. Thank you to all the participants for joining us, and stay safe, take care, and have a good day.